Fishtober Fest is gone. It's past. There's really no other fish events that I plan on being for the rest of the year. But I wanted to do, call like a retrospective, if you will, and go over some of the good, some of the bad, and why Fishtober Fest is better than Aquashella. Yeah, we're going there. Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today we're going to talk about Fishtober Fest 2022. What it was, what happened, the good, the bad, the whole shebang. And I said in the intro here that Fishtober Fest is better than Aquashella. Yeah, I know. Some shots fired, right? And let me explain. So Aquashella is a really big event, and you're going to get an opportunity to meet quite a lot of YouTubers. It's very big, very produced. You're going to see big vendor booths, things like that. Fishtober Fest is like the complete opposite, in that for the most part, you're going to see a lot of smaller creators and local stores or hobbyists in the vendor room. You're not going to see huge vendor booths. You're not going to see the big companies. You're probably not going to see someone like Cage Tropicals or Aquarium Co-op or any of our bigger YouTube channels out there. Of the channels that were present, I think the largest one was Bob Steenfot. So Steenfot Aquatics, followed shortly by Alex Williamson and myself. So Secret History Living in Your Aquarium and me. So when 20,000 subscribers and less is kind of like your big, I'm putting that in big quotation marks. I don't think it's true, but your big YouTubers in the room, other than Bob, who's 50,000 something, if I remember right. That kind of tells you some of the differences. And I've got this little like panning shot of Fishtober Fest, at least the vendor room, and I'll have that here just so you can see it. But you can see it's not huge, right? This is a small show, and over 2 days, it spreads the traffic out. I don't have official numbers from Kenny, who runs the show, and the Greater Portland Aquarium Society, but it felt a little quieter than last year, and I think part of that is just because it's spread out over 2 days. It's not a single-day event like it was the first time they ran Fishtober Fest, which was in 2021. But there's really good parts about that. And I actually I think I had the perfect person walk up to me at the show, because I had a small vendor table. I was selling some plants there, and these. I had these available, right? We'll talk about those in a minute. But there's this gal I've never met before from the Portland area who walks up and says, "I'm here because of your video." And it's like, awesome. Tell me more. And she looked at my review and my explanation of Fishtober Fest from last year, and how I said that it's a much smaller show. It's a little more like fish nerd oriented and not necessarily like big, more extravagant show. And that appealed to her. That was less overwhelming because she was newer in the hobby. And so she decided, I want to go to this. It sounds fun. Perfect. And in that case, that's where I would say Fishtober Fest is absolutely better than Aquashella. If you want a much more low-key, relaxed show for fish nerds where you're going to meet a lot of smaller local breeders, and you're going to have talks that have much less people in them, so it's very easy to ask questions. It's a lot more engaging because instead of a large room full of a lot of people, the speakers are in there with 30, 40 people. Not really a lot. So it's very easy. Think of it like a classroom when you were growing up, going through high school and stuff, right? It's this much smaller, more intimate environment. And when it's all done, it's very easy to approach any of the speakers that are there, have a conversation with them, some of the YouTubers that are there, some of the vendors, whatever it may be. Like, I can't tell you the number of half an hour long conversations I had with folks because it's so chill. It's very easy for me as a person who's running a table and and a speaker and interacting with people. I had an opportunity to talk with somebody for a while, and as people came up, I could just be like, hey, just a sec. Let me know if you have any questions or that. I can kind of explain all the stuff that I have available, and I could go right back to talking to them. And it made it obvious for the people that were there, like, hey, I can just talk to this person if I want to. And they would kind of do a lap, and then when they saw that I wasn't busy anymore, they'd come back and talk to me and ask me questions. And it was great, right? So if that is your alley, if the opportunity to sit and talk with people and have a lot of fun, plus there's a couple of different parties that were hosted by Danny and Kenny over at Danikin Aquatics at their house. There was a kind of a pre-party and an after-party. Just little things like that where we're hanging out with some of the speakers, doing stuff. Super chill. Really nice. In that regard, it's way easier to do that stuff at something that's small, like Fishtober Fest, than it is like Aquashella. And so in that regard, it's better than Aquashella. If you really want to sit and talk with the people that you know are going to be there, you're going to absolutely have that opportunity. That's awesome. It's also really great if you want to be a vendor. There were some spare tables, and I took one of them. But, you know, with the number of tables, I think they did 30 tables total for this go-around. You know, it's because it's a smaller vendor room, you can put together something relatively quick. It's super inexpensive. I mean, if you're attending it, it was free. I think that's one criticism I have as far as having the event have future is you probably need to have like a small entry fee. And I'm talking like $5, like nothing in the grand scheme of things, right? But in order to like help support that event's future, because it's expensive running these events, right? And you're super reliant on sponsors. I sponsored Fishtober Fest because I want to see it in the future. I want to see it grow. I want to see it do better, but I love that low-key feel, and I want it to stay that way, and I think it will, right? I don't think it's going to get like Aquashella, because the design of this particular convention, event, whatever you want to call it, is meant to be more low-key, more chill, more relaxed. It would be like if any one of the Triple Crown type events was its own individual event instead of all of them clustered together, right? It's much more chill, much more relaxed. I would argue, actually, that the vendor room at the Triple Crown was worse than the vendor room at Fishtober Fest, because at least the Fishtober Fest vendor room was neatly organized. It's basically a big, easy-to-navigate circle. There's plenty of space between tables, so it was easy for crowds to get through. The vendor room for Triple Crown was really cramped. It was actually hard to move through certain spaces just because of how little room was between some of the vendor booths. And the vendor booths were very similar to what you had at Fishtober Fest. So I would argue Fishtober Fest is kicking butt in that regard. And I'm sure Aquashella has these like insane vendor booths and stuff like that, but there's a huge difference in the caliber of these two shows, right? One is much smaller scale, and one is like designed to be basically a giant vendor room, right? So there's some things that we have to account for. Let me get to the speakers. So the very first speaker was Dr. Anthony Mazerall. Hi, Dr. Maz. I know you're gonna watch, but he had his beard dyed purple. It was pretty sweet. But you know, there's somebody legit scientist, right? Part of the founding of the Amazon Research Center, an extremely knowledgeable person. So we're kicking off right off the bat with a really important figure in our hobby and industry. And then the second speaker is some random YouTuber talking about dojo loaches. It's me, right? But you go from good scientific talk to kind of a more fun, silly talk that's the absolute basics about a fish that, you know, I've grown to love because of this tank behind me. And then you follow that up with Carolyn Estes. Now, I briefly touched on Carolyn when I talked about Triple Crown. She's one of the main people. It's her and Pam Chin who run the Babes in the Cichlid Hobby auction, or they like to call it the bitch auction, which I think it's genius the way they've done there. But, they've raised a ton of money over the years through these auctions for the Stuart Grant Foundation. And she did this fantastic presentation on women in the hobby. And I'm actually really kind of sad that I needed to go back to my vendor table, and her talk was right after mine, because I wish I could have watched her talk. Some of the women who were in attendance were coming out of that talk inspired and with like tears in their eyes. And I don't mean like sad tears, like, oh, this thing was a train wreck, right? Like inspired, happy, and those good emotions. And I think I'm kind of sad it's not recorded, because I think that's something that needs to be out there. That's a message that is fantastic. Just anything that helps show parts of the cichlid hobby that may not be as visible to the rest of us, right? I think is great. Next up, you have Pam Chin. You're talking about an African cichlid guru. Is a person who's been to Lake Tanganyika, and she was doing a lot of underwater footage of these fish in their natural habitats. So even if you're not really into those particular fish, it's still fascinating to see them in the wild, and she has amazing footage. She's spoken for my club, the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society. I've gotten an opportunity to see her speak. If you have a local club that can get Pam Chin out, do so. She's fantastic. And then finally, day one ends with Chris Biggs, the Mad Aquarist. I love this guy to death. He was hilarious. He put my talk to shame in the sense of how much fun it was to watch his talk. And he kind of went through, I almost want to say impromptu, but he built his talk. It's the first time he's ever talked on the West Coast. He's never been able to talk on the West Coast, and he's from Central Canada, so that's some tough travel. But he just kind of walked through like his life in a sense in the fish world. And there were lots of hilarious jokes about his like wife screaming at him. He had all sorts of like fun, meme-y kind of pictures in it. He's a very fun presentation. He's a great speaker. He's hilarious. You guys have watched him. You saw my interview with him. I mean, he's a blast. He's an absolute hoot to be around. Chris, I'm pretty sure you'll be watching this. Like, great job, man. I loved your talk. I made sure that I had time to be there for your talk, just because I knew I would be laughing, and I was. I was laughing quite constantly throughout your presentation, and kind of inspired me to do something with my next talk based on how you did your presentation. I have some thoughts rolling around in my head on how to give my own presentation a little bit extra fun the next time I get to do one. So thanks, Chris. You're the best. Day two, we have a talk from Alexander Williamson about kind of the history of fish keeping and a lot of like popular fishes in the hobby. And then there was a big auction, and the auction was great because part of it is there was a lot of surprisingly rare things going for not a lot of money. So the people were getting some amazing deals. An example would be like very rare rainbow fish that were up there. There were things like 173, like the kind of wavy zebra, if you will, the true ones, not the 173Bs, not the cheap guys, the real 173s, which Aquaria Life was there selling some of those, and was it 238s? She's going to correct me in the comments. Correct me, and they were at insane deals. I mean, we're talking about fish that retail for like, the 173s, for example, retail like $300 a piece or more, and she was selling them for less than half that. I'm not going to say the actual number because I don't want like 1 million people to be bombarding her. But, yeah, she had some insane deals. And I literally told my lady when I got home, and I showed her pictures, and she looked at me and she went, "Why didn't you buy some?" And that's not the only thing, right? There was people there who came up from California that did like a 13-hour drive. So my friend Luke, Luke, good to hear you. Travis and his son, who I met at the Triple Crown, and his son's name is like really close to the Iomaru Lakes. So they got into rainbow fish, which great choice. Obviously I approve of rainbow fish fans, but his son has been breeding rainbow fish now like crazy. He's breeding something like 30 species of rainbows, and I think he's like 12. He's super young, 12 or 13. He's super young, and he's already on his way to being like an absolute master breeder. I pondered having an interview with him and like asking him questions, but I just decided not to. I didn't film a ton at Fishtober Fest because I was just having too much fun talking to people, to be honest. And that's kind of where this comes into. Because it's so low-key, it's very easy to sit around, talk, enjoy yourself, relax. I got to meet a ton of people. I got to see, like, Barbara Jackson, for example, someone I haven't seen since 2019 at AGA. I got to meet Alexander Engelhart, who we... I met him very briefly in person before, but never got an opportunity to talk to him. And we talked tech, because we both have worked in tech. We didn't talk fish at all. But I met a ton of people in the Portland area, folks that had driven up from California, that had come out from around the Seattle area, just a lot of folks that came down to this very small convention, and it was a blast to be able to sit and talk with people. I got to meet Stephanie from Aquaria Life, Annette, again, who I've met her before, but from Mystery Snail Guardians. Of course, Stephen P. was there. He did some of his songs, performed live the new song that he has for Fishtober Fest. It was the opening to Fishtober Fest. I forgot to mention that, which that was fantastic. Dude's got some talent, I'm not going to lie. He's pretty good. Shanna from 503 Aquatics. Oh, man, why am I forgetting? Bob Steenfont, of course. There's a couple of different people that were there. So there's a shrimp vendor who's there, and I would have to dig out their card. It's, I think, Shrimpy Life? I'm doing this wrong, and I'm so sorry. My memory is so terrible. But I actually had their business card on purpose because I want to get in touch with them later. There's the store that's local to... not the Portland area, but part of Oregon. They're down toward, I don't think it's Eugene. I think that's wrong. But they're near Mike from Aqua Pros, where he lives, called Pisces Aquarium, which they have this beautiful store. I actually bought something from them. I'm going to show some of the things that I got, speaking of. Now, I didn't buy very much, and that was on purpose. But they had a copy of George Farmer's book. And I've been meaning to get this, mostly because the photography in it is beautiful. And since they had a copy there at a great price, I bought it. Because it's very easy, just like taking a cursory glance. It's really easy to get through. It's very easy to comprehend. And then you have, let me see if I can get here's a great example. You get like great photography like this. Let me cover up my face. All throughout this beautiful book. So... big ups to George on his book, and I finally got a copy now for myself. Even though I don't really read. I buy books for photography. I'm kind of weird, right? So, like I said, the guys from California that came up, so there's Travis and his son, my friend Luke, and then with them was a gentleman named Hector who runs a shop down there near Berkeley, and he gave me a little gift, which was Hector's Everything Plant Aquarium Fertilizer. So this is an all-in-one powdered fertilizer. And a number of you have asked me about an all-in-one powder. Greg Sage has one. But this one's super simple. It comes with its scoop, and it's a 1 scoop per 10 gallons, 1 to 2 times weekly. Just like you would dose Thrive, Easy Green, any of our standard all-in-one aquarium fertilizers. This is a powdered version. So I'm going to give this a run. Eventually we'll do kind of a long-term testing discussion on that. But I got an opportunity to meet him and talk with him. It was very fun. I gave away a number of towels. And then also, Annette from Mystery Snail Guardians gave me a little gift from our good friend Bex, who's an artist. And, the price tag's still in there. I should probably get that off there, right? But this print... oh, this is a beautiful snail. Which, Bex is an award-winning artist. I had that drilled into my head. So, while Miss Annette has the original, I got an opportunity to get the print, and I'm very thankful for that, because it's pretty, and I will definitely be putting it somewhere. Whenever I can do my full fish room, it's got to go somewhere, just because I can't say no to a gift like that. And I also got this little, I don't have it near me, but it's this little like silicone pink mystery snail tea bag holder for your teacup. And it's adorable. What else? So that's kind of all the positives. I do want to get into some of the negatives. By negatives, I mean these are things to work on. And I know they will because I'm kind of going to make them. Because I've basically volunteered myself to help do everything I can to make the next Fishtober Fest better. Just because I like having an event in the Northwest and I want to have more of them. So the first negative is this. I'm not sure Fishtober Fest is sustainable in its current model. And what I mean is vendor tables are super cheap. It was $100 for a vendor table, which is a steal, right? I'm going to have another video about Plants for Profit, about how like any event that has a table that is like that kind of pricing, you just almost have to get a table because you're bound to make significantly good money doing so. So while it is very generous to the vendors, I think you can afford to do a little bit more, just because you've got to make this event sustainable. It costs a lot of money to do these things. The sponsor price is probably also too cheap, but maybe part of that is because there's no obvious way to give the sponsors something really big at a show this size. So in that regard, I think the sponsorship is probably understandably okay. I sponsored because I want to help, and yeah. Even with my sponsorship cost, I still, having a vendor table made more than enough money to cover it. So there's probably something. And then the event being free, you're paying for travel with all these speakers, and it costs some stuff, and the space, and all those things. You probably need to charge like a small door fee. And I'm talking like $5, because you just have to make sure that it's sustainable. You don't want to like bleed because the club is sponsoring this, right? So you don't want to bleed the club dry. And I don't know the club's finances, so maybe they're fine, and maybe this is fine. But I just think especially if the event is going to grow and go into back to the venue it was in the previous year, which is a little bit larger venue, you probably have to look at things like that. Second, the next biggest thing is, because it doesn't feel like there's a ton of people there, my concern is we're not advertising it well enough. And the other thing is, it happened the same weekend as Aquashella Chicago. It was the weekend after AGA Chicago. So there's a bunch of events. So a lot of people who might have potentially traveled, either traveled to Aquashella or were done with all their travel for the year. So that makes it a little tough. Now, I know they want to stick it to the second weekend in October. They're trying to keep with that and make it simple and consistent. Honestly, if it's the same weekend as another big show, you might want to consider trying to figure out a way not to have that occur, just because it definitely can damage from some of the people who are willing to travel, traveling to your event in favor of something else. Not that I think that that's a bad thing, but I think that if you want to make this event keep happening and be sustainable or grow, that's probably something that has to happen. The next thing, little organizational stuff, and I know a lot of it was just, there's so much on one person's shoulders, given that it's run by a single club. So we'd probably have to find a way to get a dedicated set of staff, and I put this in big quotation marks, that runs this event year in, year out, to make the organization a little more clean. I know some of the talk started a little later. I mean, it's so low-key, it kind of doesn't matter. My talk was short on purpose, just in case, to help timing get better. But, that disorganization and timing certainly can get better, and I'm certain it will in the next year. And my last one is, we need something other than the speakers that makes that event attractive. The low-key part of it might be what it is, but there's something you need almost as a selling point, if you will, beyond the speakers that'll be present, that makes that very, very interesting to go to. And almost all the events have some kind of, the smaller events at least have an auction. They're all going to have some kind of vendor room. So we got to find something that gives it that leg up, makes it unique and special, other than being the only show in the Northwest and some of those things, right? And I'm sure there's a way that we can do this a little better. I know Kenny's got a bunch of ideas spinning in his head, so I look forward to hearing what he's got going and how it evolves. Oh, I did forget a positive. Got myself. There was basically a bar open starting at like 9 a.m. So if you enjoy having a beverage while you're talking with people, you could. And that's fantastic, right? They had service there. The folks, the staff at the hotel were absolutely lovely to all of us. The gentleman who was running the bar the 2 days, and you can still get like Pepsis and stuff like that, or Cokes, whatever. I think they were serving Pepsi specifically, but some kind of soda or water or whatever. They were just treating us absolutely wonderful, and they were fantastic. So it's another major positive. So in the end, what's the big takeaways from this? It's a small event. If you value that, and there are specific, whether it's creators or speakers you want to be able to talk to that are at that event, you're going to have an absolute opportunity to do so, probably at length at something like Fishtober Fest. And that's not going to happen at a larger show like Aquashella. So that's part of what makes Fishtober Fest amazing. Two, it's if you're on the West Coast, it's like the only show we have. So there's that too. You have to travel to everything else. Now, for all of you who are on the East Coast or Midwest, yep, it's way easier to get to Chicago. I get that. Or some of the other Florida or Texas events, sure. But for us West Coast folks, we're usually traveling quite a lot to get to shows. So having something a little more local is super nice. And third, I would say the biggest positive is if you are in the area and you breed fish or you do plants, get a freaking vendor table. It's a steal. Even if they like double the price, if it goes to $200 for the 2 days, it's still a steal. You have such an opportunity to make good money, and that's even selling stuff at very affordable prices like I did. So wait for the Plants for Profit video, you'll find out. So with that being said, that is kind of my review. Overall, extreme positive. I love small events like that. They're way more nerdy. They're way more fun. It gives me an opportunity to have a lot more face-to-face time with people who watch this channel or maybe have no clue who I am. So we talked about these, and I said there was going to be a giveaway. There is. So I'm going to give away 2 more of my unnumbered Fishtober Fest towels. Shipping and everything is free. All you have to do in the comments below, tell me 1 positive and 1 negative that I listed in this video. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Editor Bentley here, late at night on my webcam, so it's grainy because I don't have good lighting right now. A couple of things. In light of a lot of scams that are going on currently when it comes to giveaways, I will contact you in the comments, and the only place that I will ask you to reply to is my personal email, which is bentley.pasco@gmail.com. That's what I use for all my YouTube stuff. It will not be a WhatsApp, a Telegram, or anything like that. So if you see something like that, it's fake. Ignore it. It's not me. Second, for members, because I forgot this, if you want to earn an entry for the number 1 towel, it's very, very simple. All you have to do is use some of your member emotes. For those of you who are on Patreon and not YouTube members, all you have to do is just say that you're on Patreon. Okay? So include the positive and negative, right? I want that because that gets you in the drawing for everything. But as an additional, if you're a member, use any of your member emotes. I would prefer Danger Noodle. Just saying it's appropriate, but use one of your member emotes. And then if you're a patron, just because you don't have access to those, make sure to say that you're a Patreon supporter, member, however you want to put it. That way I can just cross-reference real quickly. For the member towel, you're going to be getting entries on this video and next week's video, and then I will draw a singular winner. So you've got chances to win towels in this week and next week, plus the special member giveaway for you members. Thank you so much for being a member. If you're not a member, maybe consider joining. It's the button down below, and you can still have a chance to win the number 1 towel. Now back to actual Bentley and not editor Bentley.
I would appreciate it if you like, and if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing. It helps this channel grow. It's the easiest thing you can do on YouTube to help us Simple Fish fan members do more and more. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.